grade the current recruiting class as it is now? You grade on a curve because of the 5 and 7, Michael, or are you just giving straight up against Florida State standards? This is what this class is. What do you think?
I'm just straight up always. So that's just me. I'm going to give it a C plus personally. That might sound kind of low and mean, but I'm just like the offensive line. You didn't get any top tier guys. You got some guys that maybe pan out that work, like Luke Francis and Jacoby Green, who I both love those guys. That they're good talents, and there's some other ones in there, but you don't have one that just blows your socks off. So that's one that's a takeaway there. You got some edge guys, so I'm giving you credit for that, which is a C plus. You got edge guys, you got a quarterback. You flipped Amari Thomas back to FSU because you need another running back to go in this class. And in the other positions, you got guys that are good. I mean, you got two elite guys and Chuck Kennan and certainly Isaiah Williams that are all elite guys. I like what you did with Rankins at the defensive line position. Wide receiver, you did pretty good. Brandon Bennett, Devin Carter, a lot of Jason Lopez, all those guys are really solid. So that's C plus. I think it's as fair as I can be with. There's just too much in there where we're not seeing top tier guys that like from a balance standpoint. Like Rankins is really good. Tight end Isaiah Tiller's really good. But back to the Rankins thing, who else do you have outside of Rankins? Well, there's 3 stars in there, and you kind of want a 4-star to match with him for that class. And offensive line, like I said, you want some 4-star or top talent in there that you don't see in there. So you have to be fair, and I'd say C plus or B minus if you're curving it.
Noel Kev asks, he says, hey, T. Lang and Mike, my question is, how much does FSU's national perception affect recruiting? I know money is big these days, but all the top players are getting paid. Where do big games and conferences matter? Thanks, guys. And thank you, Noel Kev, for the contribution. What do you think, Michael?
Oh, it always matters what conference you play in. We see that with even schools that haven't been good in the SEC. They find a way to get these guys to go play in the SEC. I think same thing with the Big Ten. There's some teams that probably don't do as much, but they still get guys. Again, the ACC, it's just basically if you don't have ties to like your locations that are strongest for you, whether it's Florida, Georgia, or other places, you really start to hurt. And you see that with teams that don't have those ties in there. Miami did really well. Florida did really well. Even when Napier there with all their struggles, they knew they were going to fire him. Even all that stuff, they still recruited well. Now, Florida's kind of got the SEC thing going with them, but Miami doesn't. And Miami does the same thing Miami does every year, and they lose to teams they shouldn't lose to with a loaded roster, and they never go play for an ACC title. But they have a belief inside that program of what they do with players, whether it's developing, and they believe in Mario, what he's doing, because he can recruit elite ways. He has great connections to the state of Florida. He has great connections to different areas, and Mike just doesn't have that. So FSU has to win on merit of what they do on the field. And that's part of kind of what my article will be about. It's kind of a good segue of they have to do something that attracts kids. I think Ira touched on it really well, as long as Jeff Cameron, when they had that little segment that, these kids aren't listening. So you have to get something with the messaging being received. And that goes with both recruiting, because you're getting these top kids to come here. But overall, top 14 sounds okay. It's good. But for FSU standards, it's not. You should get a top 10 class every year, in my opinion. If it's FSU, you should always get a top 10 class, in my opinion. If you're a good coach, there's no way you shouldn't get a top 10 class at a school like FSU. He doesn't have any. So he has to figure out, if you're doing make a GM change, you have to find out what's working. And I think also, FSU needs to be more aggressive and more of a jerk on the trail. Like, hey, stop kissing butt and say, this is what we offer. This is why FSU's the standard or a high standard, and start illustrating what your standard is and start showing it. I think overall that's the stuff that they're lacking. Obviously, you're retaining Mike Norvell, so that means you should have more money to spend as far as NIL and really go after these guys aggressively. And I think the problem I see is they go after aggressively in the portal, but not so much except for 1 or 2 guys when it comes to high school. So I think that has to change in their method and how they aggressively do their recruiting with their GM role or whatever assistants or coordinators are here. That's what needs to be the plan.
I'm curious. This is a personal question.
Okay.
Michael, they did a very good job this class. In the receiver realm and tight end. That's strange to you? Because this offense isn't necessarily built around the receivers. I thought the receivers were actually pretty good this year too, but you didn't have an offense that was built to display just
Yeah.
how good they were. LeWayne McCoy was in and out in terms of health, so was Boggs. But Danzy was a revelation, and Deuce obviously was a week-to-week stud. Like, they haven't been that loaded at 4 deep at receiver in some time, and yet, it's not like this was an offense where they got off the bus and go, oh, God, we're worried about those wide receivers.
Yeah.
How did they pull it off with the receivers and the tight ends? It just doesn't feel like a natural fit. And like legitimately, it looks like they did a good job at those two places.
Yeah, we're critical of the staff a lot of times of different things than what we see on the product. But overall, if you look at what Chris Thompson's done as far as recruiting, Landon Thomas, Chase Lofton the year before that, he was a 4-star tight end that I really love. Chase got hurt during the year, and now you have Xavier Tiller, who's in that same mold, which also a really good blocker. I think it speaks to their recruiting. I think Chris is doing a really good job recruiting. I think Tim Harris Jr. has done a phenomenal job recruiting. I think it speaks to your recruiting because, to your point, we weren't thinking we were coming this year like, oh yeah, FSU's going to really hum that ball around and throw it around. We are thinking, okay, they got Gus Malzahn. He's going to run the ball. That's what his history is. That's what he does. They're going to pound the ball. They're going to pound the rock. And they did that early in the season. Then later, as it went on, we saw a lot more passing. We saw a development when Micah Danzy is a lot more pure receiver than we've ever seen with Micah Danzy. He was not doing this stuff that he's doing this year. Certainly got better. He's certainly better at just his body control with the balls in the air. He's better at catching the ball. I mean, that touchdown he had against Florida, that's one of the best I've seen him do. Carrying 3 guys in the end zone for the score. It's a great play. I mean, so you've had development, I think, with that position. So those are 2 guys, I've been fairly pleased with as far as just different receivers of what they've done with them. But overall, the product hasn't been good as far as what they do, but I think overall, I think they have a lot to be excited about in that wide receiver room. You got Brandon Bennett, Jason Lopez, who I'm pretty high at in the slot. I think he does a really good job. Darion Williams is another good playmaker, and then certainly you have the guys like Devin Carter and others that are just it's a solid class. It's a good solid class, and that's why if they really nailed that position really well. But it's that other positions that didn't equal that balance, like offensive line and defensive line, where you needed more 4 stars in there that you felt like are going to come right in there and play. Because what the Desir twins are doing is amazing, but you can't count on the 3-star prospect being projected and developed in college if you're being real for that many. I think they have over like 15 3-stars. So you have to. I mean, it can happen, but it's more likely and feasible that a 4-star is going to project better than one that's just a 3-star.
Blue chips that say yes are always good. I'm not trying to turn them away, but that's the thing that confuses me here. You're hitting on this, Michael, because this offense looks like it needs to be built. Let's assume that you're going to run something similar, even if Gus is the OC or not. It needs to be built on the trenches. Running back probably needs to feature more of the tight end. I think Tommy's height had something to do with the fact that he didn't go over the middle a whole lot. But not receivers. It feels like that would be like one of the last things in the pecking order. Again, you're not going to say, hey, Tim, stand down. You're doing too good of a job. We can't take all these receivers. But it just feels like the recruiting is not matching the scheme. Is that fair to say?
I think it's very fair, Tom. I mean, absolutely. You look at the emergence of LeWayne McCoy, who's been phenomenal the last 3 weeks. I think I already talked about Danzy, who's really took a big step in his game of something we didn't see at Danzy at all. They wouldn't even played him that much. Even when we saw him out there and he was doing what he did against Alabama, I think we were all in shock because it was such a high development of what he had done before. And then I think with Deuce, we knew he was good, but he's a lot better than what we thought. But he's not a finished product. Deuce has a lot of things he can still fix and get better. So he got better as the season goes on. So Tim's done a really good job. I think even Chris Thompson's done a really good job of developing their positions. It definitely doesn't match the scheme and stuff of what we're seeing product on the field. And then I think Ira touched on it. They're got to get a whole new offensive line, it feels like, because, all those guys. So you have to figure out the right fits. And I go back to the most important thing is the quarterback position. And you definitely have to have a guy. That's the key to everything as far as your offensive side of the ball. Whether Gus is there or not, you have to figure that out. Who's going to be the guy? I would probably side with Ira as well that I would want something different because there's too much erratic play that messes up stuff, passing the ball with Tommy, unfortunately, and that's Tommy is exactly what we thought he was. Like,
Yep.
he can make big plays, but he can also miss plays that most quarterbacks won't. But he gave them a different aspect with his running. And it's the best they could probably do at that point. But now you're getting to the development part of what that team actually needs. And so now they have to, I think the quarterback position is the most important thing for FSU to execute in this offseason.
Yeah, one thing. Yes. Also, Gus was exactly what we thought he would be and said he would be, which is
Yeah.
he'll score you a result where you go, "Holy crap! How did you do that, Gus?" And then you'll lose games where you go, "Holy crap! How did you get
Yeah.
out there, Gus?" I mean, it's exactly what their track record was before they came in here. They lived up to it.